The gold medals that you won in a relay was 2008, and you reveal in this book that you had an abortion 2 weeks before that Olympic Games. Why did you want to reveal that very personal moment in the book?
The truth is, it's an issue that's not really talked about, especially in sports. And a lot of young women have experienced this. Like, I literally don't know another female track and field athlete who hasn't had an abortion. And that's sad. And so for me, I'm hoping that this will open up some discussions to helping especially a lot of young women who were in my situation not experience what I did.
Why?
In our community, people don't want to take the pill because you put water weight on. And of course, as an athlete, you want to be able to stay as fit and as healthy as possible. And then people tell you, well, when you're extremely fit, you can't get pregnant because our cycles are shorter. So there's a lot of miseducation that happens to young women in college because we're educating ourselves. And so I didn't know all of my options, and I had been fortunate up until that point. My husband and I had been dating for 5 years. I was engaged to him. I had no mishaps prior. And so I was just put in a really, really, really tough situation. And, you know, for me, it was so much more than the physical. I mean, of course, you can imagine after the procedure, I wasn't even supposed to run. The doctors told me to take 14 days off. I didn't have 14 days. But it was more for me about the spiritual and emotional part of the experience that I wanted to share, because it wasn't until even I started this journey that I uncovered some of the hurt that was still there, and, you know, and really trying to forgive myself. I knew that God had forgiven me for it, but really forgiving myself for that choice and really moving on. And now that I'm going to be a mother.
What's up, everybody? This is Mr. 100K a day in the flesh. And today we're going to be talking about female track and field sprinters and the curse that hovers over them. And I'm going to tell you guys the reason for the curse. The reason for the curse is people like Sonia Richards-Ross and Allison Felix. And it's sad because it's causing a lot of women a lot of pain, and some of them even their lives. As a matter of fact, it caused Sonia Richards-Ross pain. It caused Allison Felix pain. It caused Tiana Bartoletta pain. And it caused Tori Bowie her life. Now, I think it comes a point in time, ladies and gentlemen, where we got to take a step back and analyze what life is really all about. Is your track career or any career more important than human life? Is your track career more important than human life? Y'all just heard what Sonia Richards-Ross just said. She had an abortion right before the 2008 Olympic Games. Now, let me remind you guys, Sonia Richards-Ross had been running extremely well in 2008. In 2007 also. She'd been running well for multiple years. As a matter of fact, she had been running on an international level as a pro for at least 5 years prior to 2008. She was leading going into the race. She was the favorite going into the race. In the final, this is her coming off of the last curve. She was kicking butt. She came off the curve, winning the race. But something happened. I think God came. This is at 36.3 seconds into the race. God called and said, because of the abortion you just had, literally weeks prior, and because of the fact that you put in a career, you put a potential medal in front of human life, I'm going to punish you. So as we saw over the next few seconds, Sonia Richards-Ross literally fell apart. One woman passed her, two women passed her, and ultimately 3 women passed her. When she crossed the line in this position right here, she barely held on for bronze. You know, after the race, she had the look of defeat on her face during the interview, and I was happy to see the look that she had. Now, of course, at the time, nobody knew what had happened in her personal life, but I still think that karma came quick. And I was happy to see her lose now that in retrospect, we knew what truly happened. But there was a bigger question at hand. When do women realize that having your career is not more important than having family? It's not. It's not. When do they realize that? So this picture right here, ladies and gentlemen, this is the picture of 4 women. These are the women who got the gold medal in the 4x100 meter relay. Allison Felix, English Gardner, Tiana Bartoletta, and Tori Bowie. this mentality is my position, that this mentality that is being pushed. You just heard what Sonia Richards Ross just said. We know that Allison Felix is on this, feminist movement thing. I think that the mentality that these women are possessing, as if life is not as important as, or is not as important as your career or your track career, I think it's hurting these women, because 3 out of these 4 women have either died or almost died during childbirth. I think it's as a result of the mentality that Sonia Richards talked about, all of these women embracing career over family. So you think that getting rid of your child is going to make you more successful? It's already hard enough being an athlete as it is. What makes these women think that their track career is more important? Because as you just saw, Sonia Richards Ross, she got rid of her child, and look what happened. She still failed. Matter of fact, she was leading the race. Like I just said, she was literally leading the race off the curb by at least 3 or 4 meters, 5 meters maybe. And something still intervened that brought her back down to earth. So let's just do a quick analysis. So Allison Felix, first of all, she goes and she gets pregnant. Okay. And she starts on this big, huge thing against Nike, as if Nike was doing her wrong. Now, I don't believe Nike was doing her wrong. What I believe is that she was already getting old. She was already falling off. So Nike was already going to reduce her. But she made it seem like Nike wanted to get rid of her because of her being a mother. That was false. So this is a thing that Allison posted in 2018. And she said, giving birth 2 months early is something I never imagined. It was terrifying. It brought me to tears to have to leave the hospital without my baby. In the midst of this tough situation, I know God has a purpose and my family is choosing to trust him. Cameron came into the world as a fighter, and it's only the way we know. It's the only way we know how to live. So she had a difficult pregnancy. Her baby ended up in NICU, was in ICU for several weeks after she gave birth. But I want to know, when do these women prioritize their health and family over their career? Why is it that people have gotten so far away from the realities of life? And the realities of life is, we are only here for one purpose: to be fruitful, multiply, then we pass on. When at Allison Felix funeral, all of our funerals, they're not going to talk much about you as an athlete. They're going to talk about how much they missed you. They're going to talk about how great of a mother you were, how great of a father you were, how great of a leader you were. That's what they're going to talk about. So I think it's very important that these women are used as examples of what not to do. Because one pattern that we're seeing is that when you put your career, money, riches over human life, over family, usually you lose. And Allison Felix, I feel like her and Sonia Richards Ross, even though they had 18, 19, 15-year careers in track and field, they did absolutely nothing to help women grow, or even the sport grow, until Allison Felix had a premature child. When she had a premature child, all of a sudden she pretends like she's the advocate for women's health. What were you doing the first 15 years of your career, Allison? Were you just taking your money from Nike and just enjoying your life, not caring about what other people do or what they're experiencing? Did you not hear the calls from other mothers talking about complications they had, or issues that other track and field, female and male, had, because you were just tone deaf to everything because you had your money and you didn't care about nobody else? I think this is exactly what it was, Allison. And for that reason, I believe God pushed her to the brink and let her know what was important. Because guess what? All the money, all the accolades in the world don't mean nothing if, when your child comes into this world, you have to worry about how long they're going to stay here because of premature, because of complications, or because of anything. At the bottom line came down to the fact that she had to realize that having a healthy child and having her family was more important than her career. Now, we all know she went on this tangent after that, make it seem like Nike was doing her so wrong, even though she had already lost the Olympics in 2016. She wasn't doing that well. Her performances in the best event that she was known for were going down. I don't think she ever made another 200-meter team after that, at that point. But of course, she had to find something to target, and that was Nike, and make it seem like women's health was so important to her at that point. I get it. But it damaged a lot of people because psychologically it plays into people's head. For example, everybody knows that Shelly Ann Fraser Price, who's pictured on the picture here, has also had a child. But you don't hear her running around talking about, oh, I'm going to do this for women. We all know she can do it. We all know she's a mom, but she has a man, she has a husband helping her raise the child. And she doesn't advocate she advocates for track and field. She advocates for track and field. She doesn't make her agenda to try to embarrass one side or push men down while building women up. She understands as a Jamaican woman, you are strong as you are strong like your team is. You need to be strong and make your team strong. And that's why I respect the Jamaican women over the American women. So let me make sure I'm clear. So far, we just went and analyzed what just happened to Allison Felix. She had a premature child. She put out the post about what happened during her premature after having a premature child. We've seen her child now grow to be healthy, and she was able to come back. She was able to get a couple of more medals. Even though she was never an individual gold medalist again, she was still able to do that. I feel like the plight that she took on was fake, and I feel like what she did ended up ultimately hurting women more than anything when you look at it overall, because like I said, she did not advocate for anything dealing with women until she had a premature child. All of a sudden now she wants to run it in a shoe. When she's at the end of her career, she didn't run her own shoe, Sasha, whatever her company is called, during her career. She didn't put all her gold medals on the line in her own shoe. Of course, she ran those great performances in Nike shoes. Only when she was performing as Dumpster Juice, right? When she could barely even break 50, only when she wasn't making 200-meter teams, that's when she decided to take on this challenge of going into what she called this chapter.
This is how history
in her own shoe and claiming, I'm doing it for women. You know, she says, look, Cammie and Mama Felix with acting skills. You can shop my collab with Athleta, whatever they call it. I'm sorry, Athleta. That's her company. And I think it's ridiculous. I think it's ridiculous when you take women like this who take an approach that tries to make other people look bad or try to shame other people into complying to what you want them to do. This is on the front of Time magazine. It says the record-setting American sprinter heads into her 5th Olympics, first as a mom. I think that's just completely ridiculous, man. You know, women can be mothers and do what they want to do, just like men can be fathers and do what they want to do. But ultimately, we're not here on earth to be track and field athletes. We're here on earth to be fruitful, multiply, and really just serve God. And that is the absolute truth. So, you know, that was Allison. I feel like she damaged the sport. She was boring anyway, and she really didn't really operate in a way that I felt like was appropriate if she really wanted to promote women and promote the sport. Because like I said, she waited till her career was over. When she was at her peak, she didn't push for any of that. Now, we all know she just had another child, healthy child. God bless her with another child, and that's good. We were definitely happy to see her have a healthy child and have no complications. And I'm happy to see that she didn't end up in a very bad predicament like she could have ended up. But I think that the mentality that she embraced, that she promotes, ultimately hurts women. Because when you take the approach that putting a career, putting a dollar amount, putting a track and field gold medal, potential gold medal, because even though, just like Sonia Richards-Ross showed, even though you may make the team, you may get rid of your child, but guess what? You still may end up with nothing. And she was lucky to even get the bronze medal, Sonia Richards. And I think that ultimately is a very, very telling experience for her. Because, and I hope that she lives and every day she regrets what she did, because I don't think it was the right thing for her to do. So we're going to go next. Now, like I said, this is the women's 4x100 meter team. And I think the other woman on there, I'm going to go to the next one. That's going to be Tiana Bartoletta. Now, Tiana Bartoletta I think she was really an amazing long jumper. She was a amazing long jumper. She was an amazing sprinter. She made multiple teams. As a matter of fact, when she was, I felt like she was best. Her leg in the 2012 first leg in 2012 at the Olympics when the women set the world record. Of course, she handed off to Allison. Then Allison handed off to I think Bianca Knight. Bianca Knight handed off to Carmelita Jeter. I think that was an amazing leg. So what I'm gonna do, y'all, I'm gonna show y'all Tiana Bartoletta. And Tiana Bartoletta, oh, well, apparently she's erased most things on her Instagram page. I don't know why. Okay. So I'm not going to be able to look at Tiana Bartoletta. But Tiana Bartoletta also had a complicated pregnancy. She almost died. She had a premature child. Now, I think it's important that we pay attention to the patterns here. So she had a premature child. And we know what ended up happening later on. We know what ended up happening later on. Her baby lived. But the next person on here is going to be Tori Bowie. Now with Tori Bowie, this is her hugging Tori Bowie. Now she posted after Tori Bowie's death. She said, Tiana Madison, Olympic athlete, social worker, and mom, speaks on the Black maternal health crisis in an original essay. I was shocked and angry when rumors of Tori Bowie's death began to circulate. My brain refused to believe that someone I stood on top of the world was gone. And she may have died alone. Red, white, blue flowers framed a closed casket that I couldn't believe she was in. I opened the program and began to read the obituary written inside her. It was then in the pew of her funeral, at her funeral, as a choir sang an upbeat worship song, I learned that my teammate Tori had been pregnant. So here we go, another woman on the same team who died. It turns out ultimately she died from preeclampsia, which is a maternal thing that happens to some pregnant women. So it's in May of 2023, U.S. Olympian Tori Bowie tragically lost her life after experiencing preeclampsia and respiratory distress while in preterm labor. So Tori Bowie had posted a lot about this, and I think it was extremely telling. I think that this incident was another tragic incident as a result of the mentality that our sisters, our women are taking in track and field. And that is your career or some other immoral thing is more important than family and human life. When you have women advocating for abortions, advocating for their careers over human life, I think that these things are just karma. It's only a matter of time before you got to pay that ultimate price. At what point do you recognize that your career is not as important as human life? You can always come back on your career. As a matter of fact, you can always come back from basically anything except death. The problem that I have is that people don't realize that you can't come back. That you can't bring life back. And somebody posted this on Tori posted this on her page. She said the saddest part about Tori Bowie's death is that she appears to have died alone and been deceased for over a week before she was discovered. Where was the support system around her and her unborn child? This is an accusatory. It's more of an inquiry about the structures of care for BW, which is Black women. Now, this is not a race thing, y'all. I know they always want to make it seem like it's a race thing at every point, but this isn't a race thing. I'm going to tell you what this is. This is a foolishness thing. This is a foolishness thing. Let's not forget, Sonia Richards Ross talked about how none of the women that she knew in track and field had not had an abortion. That's what she said. That's exactly what she said. So at what point do you believe that these incidents are a result of karma? At what point do you realize that maybe you're paying the ultimate price for your reckless disregard for human life? Your reckless disregard for the very purpose in which God put you here for. So that's that. Now, the other woman on this picture. Now, we see what happened to Allison Felix. We know Tiana Bartoletta also had the complications and almost died. I wish I could have showed the pictures that she had, but she's erased things on her Instagram, which is fine. And we know that the beautiful Tori Bowie ultimately lost her life. What about English Gardner? We got to worry about English Gardner falling into the same situation? Maybe not. Why? Because this is English Gardner. That's the direction she's decided to go. Now, I'm not a person who's going to sit here and analyze the morality of a person. I don't care about what you do in your personal life, but we know what she advocates for. But we've seen English Gardner, and guess what she's always talking about in her interviews? She's still running 11-3, still competing. I don't know how she's even signed continuously. It's just amazing. She doesn't make any teams. She is not doing well in years. She's not the same chick that she ran that amazing race in 2016. As a matter of fact, I don't think English Gardner has ever really lived up to her potential. But we do know that she does advocate for this type of activity. So I don't know if we have to ever worry about her falling into the same situations that Allison Felix and Tori Bowie did and the Tiana Bartoletta did. But I do feel like she ultimately will still pay a price for this type of conduct that she engages in, because right is right and wrong is wrong. And when you're doing wrong, the chickens have a way of coming home to roost. What you advocate for usually is what ends up consuming you. If you advocate for love, it will consume you. If you advocate for immorality, usually it consumes you. If you advocate for violence, ultimately, it probably will consume you. So I think that we need to encourage our female track and field sprinters. We need to encourage them to do the right thing and focus on it when things do come before you in life, in family. I think we should try to get them to understand that a career is not as important as life. You can't replace life. You can't replace humans. You know, your career is ultimately not that important. You know, you only have a short window of career, track and field especially, you know, but you're going to be on this earth for 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 years maybe. And God only gives you one opportunity to get it right. So the type of life you want to lead, you know, I think we should always take a hard look at how we want to end up and what we want to advocate for, what we want to push. Now, if you want to push for wrong, you push for wrong. If you want to live right, live right. But I think that we should always do a self-analysis of exactly what is really ultimately most important. And I believe that Sonia Richards Ross, after reading her book, I think that she took an approach that she tried to atone for what, you know, the errors that she made, and she wanted to make things right. Maybe she has, but I think it's unfortunate that Allison Felix is still out here pushing the same agenda that I feel like ultimately has hurt all women, and especially women in track and field. English Gardner is pushing an agenda that will hurt her and probably hurt other women in track and field and in life in general. Tiana Bartoletta, she seems to be the most stable-minded person, and she understands the gravity of her situation that she endured. And the beautiful Tori Bowie ultimately lost her life because probably of from her own recklessness or taking on the same mentality that Allison Felix and other women, or even Sonia Richards Ross took on. So I think that people should, this is just, you know, people should think about that. You should think about energy and things that you advocate for, and remember that ultimately, you know, there's always a cause and effect. And I feel like the cause and effect in this situation was probably going to fall on the shoulders of Sonia Richards Ross and the spirit in which she possessed, and the spirit and infectious mentality that Allison Felix takes on, and a lot of other women in track and field take on. And I feel like it needs to change. So, you know, this is Mr. 100K a day with another episode of The Biggest Hater in Track and Field. And I want to know exactly how you guys feel about this particular situation. Is the mentality that Allison Felix and Sonia Richards Ross, is that mentality ultimately what hurts these females and hurts female sprinters and hurts women? Or is it something else? Because I believe that the mentality hurts. You know, instead of having the men around you and the supportive system around you, and you advocating for family, instead you call yourself advocating for women and advocating for your career. And, you know, we see the results of it. Let me know what y'all think in the comments. Take care. Peace.